Sunday evening across the West Midlands. We are back with you for another West Midlands Football Podcast. Been a big day of action in the Premier League and success story in the Championship over the weekend as well. I'm Ben Ellis, joined this week by Gavin Longthorne. It's just myself and Gav for this week. First of all, good evening, Gav.
Good evening, Ben. How are you doing tonight?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that because I've got
might be a contrast tonight, but yeah,
might be a bit of a contrast. So we are going to start on the positive of Tottenham Hotspur 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2 this afternoon in the Premier League. Jimenez and Dendoncker on the score sheet in the first half for Wolves. You must be absolutely cock-a-hoop right now.
A little bit from Wolves' point of view. A little bit, yeah. It's very frustrating. I mean, if we did this podcast and it was a league game from Thursday night, say it was today instead of Thursday night, from the Arsenal game, I'd be very, very annoyed. But it's helped the blow a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Other results that have happened after the game today, West Ham dropping points at Leicester, have made it more achievable to get that top four again, or top six, if you will. I'm very happy about that result. I mean, going into it, any Wolves fan would have probably gone there and took the point. But we seemed to really go for it the first 15 minutes, which tells you from the scoreline as well, with Jimenez's goal after 5 minutes, and then the Dendoncker one to follow it as well. Being there from a footballing point of view, I think they were both bad goalkeeping mistakes, especially the first one. I don't know whether you've seen the highlights yet, Ben, or not, but I really do not know what Lloris was thinking for that first goal. And the second one, it seemed to be a defensive scramble, and then it fell to Dendoncker for the follow-up, and he put the ball in the back of the net. Let's not make any bones about it. I mean, the game was very scrappy after that. The first half we were more comfortable, but in the second half it seemed very scrappy. Not so much backs to the wall, but it seemed more like we were trying to conserve what we had the second half when it didn't really feel like we needed to. We had a bit more freedom when Hwang and Trincao come on the last 20 minutes. But, I mean, the way that football is, we're not going to complain about getting these results however they come. It's keeping us back in the race for the top four and top 4/6, sorry. So, yeah, I mean, I thought going there, I wasn't expecting it to be that comfortable the first 20 minutes, but I would have took it. A lot of things that I noticed from Spurs, I know it's a Midlands podcast, but I feel like they're a club where there's a lot more going on in the background that we're not seeing at the moment as well. Just from watching that game of football today, it just didn't seem right from their part. I think we caught Spurs on a very, very bad day. Obviously, the result that they had in midweek against Southampton didn't help them. And they probably would look to bounce back on this game, which they didn't do. But I think there's a lot more about Spurs being said today than Wolves, if that makes sense. I feel like there was a lot more there where, in my opinion, say it's a Midlands podcast, but we'll bring it from an England point of view. From what I watched today, I think Kane's punching his ticket there. I just don't think that he really wants to be there anymore. I think there's a lot of body language issues that you can see from him. I just don't think he's linking up as much as he did in previous seasons with the players that he had there. The front three that they have there in Lucas, Son and Kane should be firing. It reminds me a lot of the at Liverpool, they don't have an out-and-out centre forward, but that front three does remind me a lot of the one that's at Liverpool, where it seems to be that they all work off each other very well, but I didn't see that today. And look, putting my Wolves hat on, I feel like pardon me, I'm not going to argue going away from there with the 3 points. I mean, focusing too much on Spurs' negatives does take away from Wolves' positives. We did play very well. I know we're going to get on some more points from this game as we're going into the podcast, but Luke Cundle making his debut for us today, he didn't do too much spectacular, but he didn't do too much wrong at the same time as well. That's not a bad sign to see in a player. I mean, if he's being told to go out there and do the say for sure things at places like Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, that's not a bad thing if he does do that for us. I think that was what was missing in the game on Thursday as well. I think when we played Arsenal, playing that midfield too left us a bit lacking of bodies in the middle of the park. I think today that might have helped us a little bit more because I think we, especially with players that Arsenal have like Odegaard, Xhaka, Partey, I think they can bully in midfield very easily. Today it seemed like we controlled that a little bit more. So yeah, I think there's a lot of positives to take out of today. As the result, especially obviously, and it's keeping us in that race to the top six also as well.
From what I've seen, and obviously the context of a 3-minute highlights package on YouTube, obviously doesn't tell you the full story, but it wasn't as if they went 2-0 up and then sat on it either. I mean, they created chances after that to maybe extended their lead. Spurs had a couple of chances after that at 2-0, which, had one of those gone in, you're away from home, it becomes 2-1, a different game. You sort of start to think about getting through. But the best thing as a Wolves fan you could hope for, the way they are set up under Bruno Lage and the way they go about their business is to get an early goal. And then because you think, well, okay, we haven't won the game, but I'm fairly confident, that whoever we're up against, they're going to have to work damn hard to get back on terms and to get something out of the game.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, as I said earlier, Ben, it was a goalkeeping mistake that was made, but you take that in football and it's how you manage it afterwards. I mean, it was a case of the goalkeeping mistake was made. Jimenez done a brilliant piece of skill. It was I don't know if you've seen it, as you said, from the highlights that you've seen, but it was a chest down and volley into the top corner, which was a good piece of skill from him. If I'm going to be honest with you, I mean, it's a case of we didn't sit on it, but at the same time, we did let Spurs back into the game, which we didn't really need to. The way we were playing that first half, I think, was how we could have carried on pushing it into the second half as well. It was frustrating at times. It sounds stupid because we've come away from Spurs and we've won 2-0, but it's still little things there that we really need to work on. I think if you're being a realistic fan, it could have been a 3-1, 3-2 to us because I think they did have some very realistic chances. I mean, you said that you've seen some highlights of the game, but through a source, I've watched the game live and watched it in full. There was a couple of chances that fell to them. I mean, Kane had a mean shot from the outside of the area at the start of the second half that just flew across the top of the crossbar. Kulusevski, the new signing from Juventus, Jose Sá was really, really caught out of position. He's been brilliant for us, but he was really, really caught out of position for a chest down shot he had, which really should have scored on the face of it. So it could have been a 3-1, 3-2 maybe if you're talking it from a fair footballing standpoint. But look, we had a game on Thursday night where we'll talk about it probably another time, or we'll talk about off air, but I don't understand how Arsenal celebrated the way that they did after that game on Thursday night. It's swear blind that they won the Premier League, but that's gone and finished now. But you've got to take these games as they come, and when you have these opportunities and little bits of luck in games, then you take them, and I think that's what shows how you're going to capitalise and win these games.
Yeah, I think I saw a tweet from Ruben Neves after the game on Thursday, criticising the celebrations of Arsenal having just won the game there, like they've won the league. But I think that's a compliment to. I think that you take that as a compliment. I think you take the positives out of that. They've knuckled down and they've worked hard, and Arsenal have got a result, and they've gone down to 10 men. They've come away with it against a very good Wolves side on home territory. I just want to say hi to Matt, who's sent us a couple of messages in while we're talking about Wolves. You can do that through Facebook as well. Matt thought Dendoncker had a decent game. Now, on this podcast, either last week or the week before, Gav, you said, I don't know what Dendoncker's doing in this team. He's on the score sheet today.
Yeah.
Do you like to perhaps reassess your opinion on Leandro Dendoncker, or do you still see it as well? He scored, but I haven't changed my mind.
I'm not going to change my mind. I'm genuinely not going to change my mind. I think Dendoncker has his limitations. I think when I spoke earlier, I think it was last week that I spoke. I was very frustrated and annoyed after the cup game, but the thing is with Dendoncker, he does have his limitations. Sorry, he in games like today where you have like Kundal and Neves there doing all of the hard work, and then Dendoncker comes in, and he does do what he does, and you're winning games. It doesn't look too bad, but I think he looks a lot more comfortable in the midfield three than the midfield two. Sorry, I think when you have that midfield two there, and it's probably more a case of that they've got an understanding as well. You have Martino and Neves there. I think Martino does a lot of the sitting back and he does a lot of the assessing of play and breaking up a play, which frees up Neves to do a lot of the creative work in midfield. I don't think Dendoncker's capable of doing that. From a personal point of view, I don't think he's very good defensively. I don't think he's very good attackingly. But I think when he's in that midfield three, he does just shore it up a little bit. I know it might sound a little bit contradictory saying that, but we're in a position at the moment where obviously we haven't made many signings the last two windows, and you've got someone there that's comfortable and he can do you a job. So I'm not going to reassess what I've said. Even though we've gone there and he scored a goal today, which has won us the game, I'm not going to reassess what I've said. But it's not a look. If anybody puts a shirt on for Wolves, I'm never going to slag them off too much. But at the same time, I do recognise when players have limitations.
Fair enough. That's a pretty good assessment as to where things stand. So onwards and upwards, back to Molineux next Sunday against a Leicester side who are really struggling this season. The question marks over Brendan Rodgers and has he taken probably Leicester as far as he can, and do they really need to sort of change things up there? So some of Leicester's stats defensively are quite shocking. I think they're the worst in the league at set pieces this season. They got a mauling at Nottingham Forest in the Cup last week, and thought they might have gone some way to exercising those demons today, but a last-minute equaliser for West Ham sort of put paid to that. So they're in the bottom half of the table, which is something we're not accustomed to seeing with Leicester City since they won the Premier League in 2016. So, as I say, the opportunity is there to go and get more points. You know, taking the points off Tottenham today, West Ham only getting a draw, Man United only getting a draw. They were really poor on Saturday, I thought, against Southampton. No reason why Wolves can't go and grab 3 points in another big game next Sunday.
Well, I know we've got to be impartial, but you've got to take games as they come. But it so annoyed me earlier when I seen that West Ham scored that goal. I don't know whether you saw it live, Ben, but I personally think that was a handball from Craig Dawson. We had one that was disallowed that was similar earlier in the season, which was...
You'll forgive me. I stopped watching football at 4 o'clock this afternoon, which we'll get to.
I've been there, done that, got the T-shirt, don't worry. But yeah, it was something similar that we had earlier in the season where it hit somebody on this part of the arm. And for some reason, it got disallowed for us, but for some reason, it was allowed for them. Make that of what you will. Even VIR checked in all of its glory. But that's by the by. Just very annoyed because we have 2 games in hand on West Ham and a 4th now. The 4 points behind us. 3 points would have been easier. 4 points would have been making it more difficult. But as you say, there's no reason why not, Ben. I mean, we're playing with more license this season. I know that people are saying that we've had games that have been thrown in where it looks more like it's cut and paste from last season, like the first half of Thursday night. The cup game against Norwich, games earlier in the season that we played. But look, I think this manager's coming in here now. He wants to play a different way, but I think with what he's got limitations on that also. I think in the summertime, I think the board really needs to back him now and they need to give him a couple of players. Look, I didn't have an opportunity to say this after the game on Thursday night, but when I was walking out of there, I thought, look, we played 3 games earlier on this season, 3 games we should have won. We didn't win any of them, and we didn't score a goal. And we're 7th place now. and we're in the conversation for top four. So, in my opinion, as an honest football fan, if we finish 9th or 10th, that won't be the end of the world to me. I think it will be more of a case of we've got to look at what the manager's done this season. And I'll be honest with you, and I'll give my honest opinion. I think that we look a lot better than last season. I think there's a lot more attacking emphasis on there. And we've got players to come back like a fully fit Hwang, Neto. We've lost Traore, but in my opinion, I think Traore is a 50-50 player on his day. Depends what mood he is when he turns up. So you've got those players there to work with, and then he's got the summer and a proper close season to bring his own type of players in to really work with. So I think next season is a season you've got to judge it on. 9th to 10th for me is I'll be satisfied with that. But anything on top of that will be the gravy for me. I think that will be like a bonus at the end of the day. Look, if we did get top four, we finished 4th now, and we had the squad that we have now, how would we perform in the Champions League? Not very well, I don't think. So I think it's a work in progress, and I think it's a project that we've got under Large now. Nuno was a project, and he consolidated us, and now we're moving on to Large, and he's a brand new project that's going to give you more of that creative.
Okay, you've kind of answered what was going to be my next question. In that question is in that are Wolves equipped for European football next season, be it the Europa League, Champions League, or whatever? But you seem to have your doubts, and
well, I will answer it. I will answer it honestly. I think, if I'm being honest now, as a football fan, probably no, but I won't say no if that makes any sense. At the same time, I mean, it was the first season under Nuno when we was a new entity in that Premier League. I wouldn't have said no at the time, and it was an enjoyable experience to have. And I think the players that we still have there that were there before have learned from it. But it's something that will probably be a no, but I would not say no at the same time, if that doesn't sound too contradictory.
It does, but we understand. It's the West Midlands Football Podcast, Sunday evening across the West Midlands on your local TV station. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter is where we are streaming. We thank you very much for joining us, staying in the Premier League, a game that was happening at exactly the same time that Gavin Longthorne was enjoying watching Wolverhampton Wanderers at Tottenham. I was having a less pleasurable experience watching my team, Aston Villa, at Newcastle, and 1-0 defeat. Kieran Trippier with the only goal of the game, a free kick from the edge of the box. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. Villa thought they'd equalised on the hour with Ollie Watkins from close range. We've learned if Ollie Watkins puts the ball in from close range, he's more than likely offside in the eyes of VAR, and that's how it came to pass again. This, Gav, and you probably have seen only snippets. You've probably only seen highlights, but I'm telling you now, this was the worst performance since Steven Gerrard walked through the door. And it was kind of like we've kind of gone back to our old tricks here before Dean Smith got the sack of looking very sort of lethargic and one-paced and sort of lacking ideas, and up against a team in Newcastle that had got back-to-back wins, that had a very active transfer window, just as Villa had, but they seemed that they wanted it more. And you know, you can lose any game. There are always circumstances in which you have to kind of take a defeat on the chin, but there are ways to lose. And to me today, that was not an acceptable way to lose a game of football in the Premier League. It wasn't good enough. Matt's still with us messaging. Coutinho did play today, didn't really get into the game. The Villa midfield wasn't at its strongest in combating against Newcastle's energy. I'm not offering that as an excuse, but they were just very lethargic. And listening to Steven Gerrard afterwards, it's the kind of performance that he's not going to accept. And because it's quite simple, Gav, isn't it? He didn't come here for that level of performance. He could have stayed in Scotland and gone toe-to-toe with Celtic and try and win the SPL again, in which he'd have been in a neck-and-neck race for. He could have still been relatively successful at Rangers, you know. But a job like Aston Villa comes calling. he's not going to put up with too many more performances like that from individuals who I will go through in a minute, but he's not going to put up with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do our usual prep before the show, and I do think of it, and I did look at some, I think it was a 12-minute highlight clip that I watched of the game today. From what I've noticed, I think there's a few things. For me, Ollie Watkins is going to get scrutinised for that, but would you have rather seen Ings down the middle today? I mean, people say that you can't play one or the other, but I mean, with Danny Ings, I think he's an out-and-out number 9. I think he got more chances of getting goals out of him. Look, as long as Watkins is a professional footballer, for me, Ben personally, I don't think he's going to be a 20-goal-a-season striker at that level. I just cannot see it happening. The Coutinho element of it, I think it's still a work in progress with him, even though you've got him on loan. I think you've got to wait for him to get back to that full match fitness. People say, well, why has he gone to Brazil to play internationally? But I think it's still a case of he hasn't played week in, week out. You will get the best out of Coutinho going forward, but I just don't think you're going to see it for another 2 or 3 games. I just don't think you are going to, because he hasn't played week in, week out properly for a good season and a half, 2 seasons now. I think with Gerrard as well, he will be frustrated, but for me personally, if I was in the shoes of a Villa fan or a Villa stakeholder, I would think that it's more of a case of Gerrard's going to go in there and he's going to try and implement what he wants to do there. But I think there's still too many of Smith's players there too recently to play the Smith way, if that makes any sense. I think that he has to bring in a couple more of his own players to really bring that own style of his playing. You've seen the same with Wolves sometimes. I don't want to backtrack on the show, but you do see the same with Wolves sometimes, where I think still at the moment there's too many of Nuno's players there, and still they do revert back to type sometimes, where they're up against it in games and they do play like that Nuno Santo way, where even though he's trying to push that way onto them, they do revert to type, unfortunately. I think it's just a case of that it's not comfortability, or it's not how long players have been there. It's just that it's still too fresh in the brain at the same time. And also, I think it's a case of we had it earlier in the season where, ironically, when Smith left Villa and he went to Norwich, we caught Norwich at the wrong part of the season. I think it may be this 2 or 3 weeks that you window that you have now, where the transfer window's ended and they brought these types of players in that are really going to switch it for Newcastle. I think you may have caught Newcastle at the wrong time of the season. I think there's that enthusiasm there that they've got these new players in, and they've putting it up another extra notch when they brought these players in, and it may be a case of that. I think that anyway.
I'm not that bothered about Newcastle and where they are, what they're doing. That level of performance from my team today wouldn't have got a result against anybody, and I think that's the point. That's what irks you. At half time, I posted in a Villa fans group that said there are players out there who won't be at the club next season because, as we said, Steven Gerrard won't put up with that level of performance. And we mentioned during this little mini break where Steven Gerrard's had a chance to assess the settled Dean Smith players to find out if they're for him. I mentioned Tyrone Mings, Douglas Luiz, Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins, if he's not going to get 20 goals a season, and we're fairly agreed on that he's not, then what else is he doing? He doesn't hold the ball up. The ball doesn't stick to him when the ball gets forward. And that was frustrating today. So I include Ollie Watkins in that. And I also mentioned John McGinn. Now, all I said was in this post, just a few naming there who are doing very little at the moment to convince the new manager that they're anything better than lower half of the Premier League players. All the abuse I got. All the abuse I got for having a dig at John McGinn. One person, I'm not going to mention him, in a forum like that, you can say you disagree with me. You can call me names if you like. This person actually messaged me privately to have a go at me. And I think, well, you're out of order, pal, and he's blocked, quite honestly. Because that's not what it's about. joys of the internet.
Ben, unfortunately.
I'm not having a actual dig at John McGinn. I'm having a dig at the core of players who, let's be honest, have been there not too long. You know, we talked about the West Brom squad and the players that have been there too long and they haven't refreshed it, and they get very comfortable and they go through manager after manager, but it doesn't seem to change for them in terms of the squad. I'm not saying that's happening at Villa, but there's a core of players who have been there a while, who were very much Dean Smith's guys, had got very comfortable, feet on the table, and not deliberately, but were turning in performances like we saw away at Arsenal, and like we saw away at Southampton, and like the ones who threw it away against Wolves from being 2-0 up, you know, and their heads dropping. That's what Steven Gerrard's got to get into his head. That's what he's got to decide. I'm comfortable with who I'm bringing in because I'm having a big say in who's coming in. I know the academy is great and I'm going to get a lot out of this. Jacob Ramsey didn't have a great game today, but nobody else did either. But he's coming on sort of leaps and bounds. There's guys who are out on loan at the moment doing great stuff. Cameron Archer scored again for Preston yesterday. Even Keenan Davis is doing well at the moment for Nottingham Forest out on loan. So, you know, I know where I am with who I'm bringing in. I know we've got what I've got from the academy. It's this core that are there. And those names I mentioned are all part of that. They're all part of that. I'm not saying John McGinn, get rid of John McGinn, is useless. I didn't say that. Somebody thought I did and decided to have a go at me privately on a message and, as I say, got blocked. But that is what Steven Gerrard has got to do. He's got to look at them and he's got to say, are they for me? Are they of the required level to get me and this squad and this club up to, just for a starting position, where Wolves are now? Because consistently, they're proving that they're not. They're not in any kind of danger of relegation or going down or anything like that. But we're looking at moving up, not staying still.
This is exactly what I was...
And you've got to be almost cruel to be kind, really, with this. The owners are very ambitious. Steven Gerrard wouldn't have come down from Rangers if he wasn't ambitious. So the players have got to match their desire and their ambition, and the fans. You know, the manager won't put up with that level of performance. The owners won't, and we shouldn't either as supporters. And that was my point. That was what I was making. So Matt's asking, has the new manager bounce ended? The real quality of the squad showing. I don't think Villa had a manager bounce. I think Gerrard is a good manager.
I don't think that's never going to go with Gerrard because I think he's got that pull and he's got that allure. Whereas, let's be honest with you, I know it's the Scottish League, but from what I saw when he was at Rangers, I think he has got something. I genuinely do think he has got something.
Yeah.
I do agree with what you said, Ben. I think it's sometimes this is where teams hit their ceiling in the Premier League. I'm not saying that Villa have. I'm not saying that they're gonna, but I think this is where you have to have a really strong coach in there, and I've got to look at games like today, and I've got to really think. Look, I'm not saying that these players that we have are bad players. They do a good job at that level, but if you want to kick on to that next level, we've got to look at doing something different. I'm not saying that Mings or McGinn are going to be out of the team. I mean, look, I think there's a lot of teams in that league that would have absolutely snatch your hands off for those two players. Yeah, they're both international class players. They both do a job at that level. But I do get what you're saying. I genuinely do get what you're saying. I mean, okay, so from what you've seen since Gerrard's come in, who would you say has hit their ceiling then? Or who would? I'm just going to bounce the question back to you.
Okay.
Who would you say that you've looked at and assessed for how many seasons has it been now since Villa got promoted? It's 2 and a bit, isn't it?
Two and a bit into the third season.
How many would you say now that have been consistently playing it would think wouldn't be the end of the world if they got moved on?
Do you remember in the transfer window we were saying our assessment of Adama Traore in the at Wolves in what you had and what you were getting when you got him, and by the time he moves on, you would hope he would have got to a certain level. I go with a parallel of that. Douglas Luiz was signed from Manchester City, not on loan, but permanently, with emotion that Pep Guardiola was going to buy him back for a huge amount of money. He ain't going to go to Manchester City now. That's not going to happen.
Well, if you wanted him by now, he would have.
He would have, wouldn't he? He would have. We'd still have Jack Grealish, or we would have lost. We would have lost the pair of them. So, I think that Joe wants a holding midfielder, and didn't get one in the transfer window. And Nakamba's injury, if Nakamba comes back fit at the start of next season, then you might see a different balance and shape. Do need to mention. Thought it might be difficult or tough today anyway, because at the end of the Leeds game on Wednesday, which is up there, I wish I'd have been a neutral. It's up there for game of the season at Villa Park on Wednesday. A lot of them looked out on their feet just because of the high intensity of the way both teams went at it. And but in that game, well, I mean, Coutinho was out of this world. Out of this world.
He was brilliant. I think that's why you signed him. I think that is exactly why you signed him, and he gives you that something different.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds silly, but as a neutral, I was come home from work on Wednesday night. I was watching the Spurs game on my phone and the Villa game on the TV at the same time, because I think it was like two pay-per-views going head for head for each other for like the bout of the year. The way that those two games played out. Yeah. I think that's the contrast today. Do you think that it might have been a case of fatigue and they're out on the feet a little bit today compared to that game?
Well, this is what surprised me. I didn't really have a problem with their energy levels. I don't think they looked tired. They just weren't at it. And if they were tired, I probably could have forgiven it more today. It's hard to put a finger on it, but it wasn't good enough today. The manager has acknowledged that it wasn't good enough, and it has to be better. And he said there will be changes. It's Watford at home next Saturday. I'm going to be there, which I'm really looking forward to. First time to see Villa in the flesh under Steven Gerrard for me. So yeah, I am really looking forward to that. Watford, you talk about a new manager bounce. I mean, they haven't had it with Roy Hodgson since coming in, and they were beaten quite soundly 2-0 by Brighton at home. So expectation will be there for the game on Saturday, that's for sure. I think the Villa fans will want to see them start quickly. I think they want to see them come out of the traps and put Watford under pressure. If they go 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes, it's not really going anywhere, and Roy Hodgson's played his kind of brand of football as the away side, and Villa Park starts to go a bit quiet, and it could be a bit of a nervy afternoon. But if Villa can get on the front foot early, score early, Watford, with their confidence being second bottom of the table, that it should be quite fragile, and I'd be hopeful that Villa could be getting back into the winning vein of form and moving forward. So. We live in hope. I'm not despondent. I mean, it's not as if Villa are in the relegation battle or anything, and there's nothing to worry about there. It's just that with the strides that they've been making, the levels of performance from an attacking point of view, I think they always suspect a little bit defensively of Villa, and I think that's something Jarrah will want to assess and address in the summer for sure. But attacking wise. I think generally we always look good going forward. Digne, Cash, fullbacks going high up the field. You've got Coutinho and Buendia linking up well. Should he go with Danny Ings against Watford? Yes. Why not?
I think he's your better chance of scoring goals from that number 9 position, Ben, if I'm going to be honest with you. And look, I think Callum Chambers is a signing more for the squad. I think he's to plug a hole for you at the moment. I don't think he was ever going to come in and play 38 games for you in a season.
I can't criticise him really today. I mean, he'd never played with Tyrone Mings before as part of a defensive duo. He's in there because Ezri Konsa stupidly got himself sent off against Leeds the other night. That's something I copped a bit of criticism for as well. Some Villa fans saying that was harsh. I said, no, he knew what he was doing. He wanted to.
We've watched football. We've watched football long enough to know.
Yeah,
we know.
It was stoppage time. He wanted to stop Leeds launching a quick counter attack with the keeper kicking from hands. So yeah, he knew what he was doing. So yeah, right. I feel good after that.
I think to be honest with you, Ben, it's look. I was where you were last season. We had you had a relatively good season last season. We had two very good seasons the seasons before last season. Last season was a disappointment to us. I think it's a case of you're going to watch your space and you're going to see the best of you next season from a neutral point of view. I genuinely do. Look, I think this season, consolidate and move on. I think you'll see a lot more. I think give Gerrard a really good close season to look at what he's got and what he wants to bring in. I think you'll see a lot more out of them.
I was thinking about the summer, actually, and this is something we could talk about in more detail towards the end of the season. But I wonder the kind of deals that are going to be done in the summer transfer window with the World Cup coming up in November, as the World Cup just happening. How many players who don't really get enough first-team football but are on the fringes of getting in a international level? If I have a good August, September, October, I could be on the plane.
Not a bad point. I've not heard anybody make that. That's a really good point. Actually.
So I think a lot of agents could be spinning that line to a lot of clubs in the close season, and with the name of Steven Gerrard being a big pull for that could be something that Villa could be interested in going forward.
Coutinho's gone there, had two good games here, and he's got strike records of the Brazil squad. So
exactly. Right, the West Midlands Football Podcast here on this Sunday evening. Myself, Ben Ellis, and Gavin Longthorne. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, and we're on Twitter. I should say Matt's with us as well because he's been messaging us all evening. Going to move into the Championship now. We have no representation, so we can't really go into this too deeply. But I tell you what, Gav, Blues fans must think, why can't we play Watford every week? Watford? Sorry, let's. Can we stop that? Can we stop that? I know we're live, but for the sake of an edit, Gav, Blues fans must be thinking, why can't we play Luton every week?
Yes, Luton, yeah. I mean, cracking result, Ben. Absolutely cracking result for Blues. We spoke about the expectations that they have last week. Look, it's not going to change. I think it's going to be mid-table at best for Blues this season. I think they're going to have a win-loss, maybe a little winning run put in there where they put 2-3 together and a draw and a loss. That's just going to be how it is for Blues. But look, Luton have played, Luton have played very well the past few weeks and are up towards that top six. They're breathing down West Brom's neck. We'll get on to West Brom.
They've overtaken West Brom.
Well, yeah. But no, very good result. From what I saw, I think Lowell Taylor's a very good signing. I think that's going to be a very astute signing for Blues.
Well, I think if you look at it, but the 3 goal scorers, Taylor, Bacuna, and Hernandez, that just shows the difference of what's come in there. And it's nice to see when they haven't got the proverbial pot to in for so many years that they've been able to actually make signings in a window, and the Blues fans they're gonna enjoy the last 3-4 months of the season and not worry about it from one game to the next. I mean the form itself. I mean it's 2 wins in 13, which you look at it on that and you go, "Ooh, hang on," but they do have the comfort of the points deductions for both Derby and Reading. Which obviously have hit them hard. Reading look like they're in big trouble, actually, heading towards the back end of the season. But yeah, very good performance. Aggregate score of 8-0 against Luton, having won 5-0 at Kenilworth Road earlier on in the season. So congratulations to Lee Bowyer and his team. We'll come back to the Championship in just a minute. We tried to get some representation on from Walsall fans. I was turned down, but a protest was had against the board before their game against Tranmere in League Two. They'd lost 7 on the bounce. They sacked the manager Matt Taylor in midweek, but they did manage to win the game 1-0 against Tranmere, who are high flying at the top of League Two. 85th minute penalty for Walsall, and it's just given that little bit of breathing space. When we used to do this on the radio, Gav, we used to talk about Walsall quite a lot, and I was thinking about this. Everybody says with Walsall, and it kind of goes against them in terms of what they want to achieve in many ways. But everybody says Walsall. Oh, Walsall's my second team. I always look out for Walsall's results locally, and how are Walsall doing? Yeah, lovely. Bescott, or the Banksy Stadium, as you want to call it, was the first football ground I ever went to. I went there before I went to Villa Park. When I was a kid, it was a brand new stadium that had opened at the time, so it's always got a place in me old ticker as Walsall Football Club. And I was thinking about it, and you had Matt Taylor. It was his first managerial job. Hasn't gone well for him. You had Darrell Clark before him. A host of names, and I was thinking it hasn't really been the same since Dean Smith left back in 2015.
No, it's a shame. It really is a shame. I mean, like, you're going to decide it's got a place in your old ticker, but it goes back to when I first got into football, where 2002, 2003. I remember when Walsall were up in the Championship pushing for top 6 playoff place. And at the end of the day, it's a Midlands team. Like, we strive to have as many Midlands teams in the top flight. We have banter and arguments with other Midlands teams, but at the end of the day, we want that in the top flight because we want to see it showcase and we want to have those derby days against each other.
Yeah, Paul Merson back then, didn't they? Paul Merson and but the players that have come through there throughout the years. Who've always done well and scored goals, like Will Grigg and Tom Bradshaw. The lads at Brentford now that Dean Smith brought through, the likes of Rico Henry. It's always been a good club as Walsall, and until the change of control, Jeff Bonser ran Walsall for many years, and it was kind of similar to a Doug Ellis or a Jack Haywood situation. If we draw parallels to our own teams, where he just doesn't push it on that a bit further, and we get a bit frustrated. But he does have the soul of the club at his heart, and he wouldn't let anything bad happen to it. So maybe we should be more thankful of and that was what it was like with Jeff Bonser at Walsall back then, and now it seems to have all kind of gone a bit wrong. And okay, they went down from League One, just treaded water really in League Two, and I think there's a danger when you're in League Two, isn't there, Gav? That there's only two relegation places, so is it as much pressure really? Unless you're genuinely terrible, you're probably not going to get relegated to non-league.
But that's the thing, isn't it, Ben? I mean, we were speaking about Solihull Moors a few weeks ago, and you look at the league that Solihull Moors are playing in, and I'll tell you what, there was some big dogs EFL boys.
Yeah, were
not even 5-10 years ago. I'm talking 2, 3, 4 years ago that were playing Football League, and it's scary. It is scary from a football fan's point of view. I know you get like a lot of these, like we spoke about last week, where you got people that don't realise that football existed before 1992. I appreciate the history of football, and I appreciate the recent history of football. And for me, it's a shame when you see it go like that. Like, for Midlands football, if Walsall got relegated from the Football League, I think that would be a very, very sad day. I think it would be a genuinely sad day. This is, we're going off topic here, but I think this is where you have people that do get genuinely incensed when the rich clubs get richer and the Football League clubs, unfortunately, get not poorer, but they don't become as sustainable anymore. I think this is why you got so much pushback with the Super League as well last season. I think this is the danger that you're seeing now. Not financial wise per se, but I mean, it can go that way if it's successful wise. If they do get relegated more enough, it does add up financial wise in the end. And you do see this happen. I think this is why people do worry when more money is being pumped into the higher clubs.
Yeah, put it into some kind of context. The change in Walsall over the last 5 years or so, they made it to the Johnston's Paint whatever it's called, trophy final at Wembley against Bristol City under Dean Smith, and lost to Bristol City. Bristol City were the massive favourite. I think they were top of League One at the time. To get promoted to Bristol City, been in the Championship ever since. So they had a good day out at Wembley, and then Dean Smith moved on to Brentford. That was a bit of a surprise the day that story broke, of course. But at the time, I remember reading an article under the stewardship of Jeff Bonser. Walsall were the only club in professional English football, professional league football. So the only club out of the 92 that broke even financially. Now, there's got to be a lot said for that. So what we saw with a change of ownership and going through many managers, they brought through a lot of young non-league players into League Two. Now, football's relative. At whatever level you want to say, yes, the financial differences at the top compared to the bottom. But if you're in the Premier League and you bring through to your squad a bunch of kids from the Championship, you're going to get relegated. So it's no different. It's no different. So
it shows how this is the thing, Ben. I mean, it shows how quickly it can go wrong when football clubs aren't run properly. I mean, they can say they broke even. They can say they've done it. And it sounds really weird saying it because you see what's going on at Derby at the moment, but there't ways of finessing the system to make it work for yourself. Getting relegated isn't going to help them financially. It's not going to help them financially. I mean, you have prize money, even in League One. I mean, people look at it and laugh, but League One prize money compared to League Two prize money is probably a lot more, and it can be more money that's pumped into the club. Breaking even means that they've done it from transfer to transfer and revenue to revenue. That's all relative. I mean, we're talking about you've got a team that's playing in the Champions League at the moment and they're in financial turmoil, but you've got Barcelona and they're still going out and spending £6 million on a player and they're nearly £1 billion in debt. It's ways of running clubs. I think you have to have the right people in these football clubs to run them, and they can manage finances better. It can go wrong really quick. I personally think it has at Walsall. I never thought to the day where they'd be in a League Two relegation battle, even when they were in League One. I just never thought it was going to happen. I personally think that them sacking the manager was a bad choice. I think even now, say the results, it's a results business, but I think there's a name in there that the players would play for. I think he would genuinely get people to play for him. I think now that they've sacked him and they're going to get someone else in, it's just going to make it even more of a fresh situation where someone's going to come in, look at the players. You know how it works with managers. They're going to go in there and settle into clubs. And it's too fine of a situation for that to work or not work. I'll just go back to the original point. I think this shows how quickly it can unravel at these clubs. And it also shows how close we all are of it, really. I mean, you got situations at Blues, you got situations at Wolves not too long ago where we were in a realistic relegation battle in the Championship and we got relegated to League One. That can be up. That could have been us. It can happen.
Absolutely, definitely. Just quickly before we move on, and we have got to finish up in just a minute. You mentioned Solihull Moors. They were in FA Trophy action at the weekend. Bit of a local derby away at Stourbridge. Obviously, there's a couple of levels difference between the two, but Solihull Moors coming away with a 1-0 victory into the quarterfinals now of the FA Trophy. So, as well as being in the playoff positions in the National League, there's a real possibility that they could be heading to Wembley as well for the FA Trophy. So go on the Moors, and that they seem to be doing it consistently season after season now, which is great. So if Solihull Moors got into the Football League, it would be absolutely tremendous. And we do wish them well. One more thing, it's a preview of Monday Night Football at the Hawthorns. It will be Steve Bruce's first home game in charge of West Bromwich Albion. They take on Blackburn, managed by former Albion boss Tony Mowbray, of course. Slipping down the pecking order in the Championship now. Of course, it's very tight in terms of the points, but they've got a lot of ground to make up. Jake Livermore, having been sent off at Sheffield United in midweek, an appeal against that sending off was overturned, so he won't be involved now. Many Albion fans, and Jonathan's not with us tonight, but many Albion fans, Gav, are saying, good, we don't want Jake Livermore anywhere near the side. And so Steve Bruce is not afraid of shirking those kind of decisions, but he won't be available against Blackburn. So a good opportunity. I'm told they played well in patches against Sheffield United, but once they went a goal down, realistically they weren't going to get back into it. But Blackburn been there or thereabouts near the top of the table for most of the season, but they are capable of throwing in a bad performance or two. I mean, I think Fulham stuck 7 past them earlier in the season, but I suppose Fulham are capable of doing that to anybody in the Championship, of course, this year. So, renewed optimism possibly for Albion fans heading into the game tomorrow night, but they're going to have to be patient, though, aren't they? Like we said with Villa, they're not. Albion aren't. If they don't come out the traps first 10, 15 minutes and start at a high tempo, they'll need the fans to stick with them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think this is the biggest game of the season for them so far. I really do. I can see why, just going back to what you said earlier when we was doing the mini preview of this, I can see why Albion fans are a bit like, why would you want to play Jack Livermore? We spoke about it with Villa. I think players can get too comfortable sometimes at clubs, but that's another conversation for another day. We're in the closed season. We're in the end game of the season now for the Albion, so this is the settled squad that they've got to work with. It's such a hard one to go. I think top 2 isn't going to happen for Albion now. It just genuinely isn't going to happen. But as you say, at the same time, Blackburn are a team that they can get at. The crowd in full voice going into that game. But I just hope it doesn't turn sour. I'm a Wolves fan. I do hope they do get promoted because I do want to see them have derbies with us next season. I didn't get to speak about it much last week, but I personally don't think that was a bad appointment. I don't. You might disagree with me, Ben, but I think that he's a better bet than what they had before to get them promoted, even if it is for the playoffs. I think he's someone that's got more of a chance of getting the team organised. If it was Ishmael that had at the helm going into this game against Blackburn, I wouldn't fancy them as much. But I think Bruce does have that knack of getting teams organised. This is his level. We did pretty much say that last week. In that, what I would advise Albion fans to do, and you can tell me to stick it. I mean, I'm an Albion fan, of course, but I look at it sort of objectively. Is that I would say to Albion fans, forget about the style of football. Forget that. It's a bonus if you can do that in the Championship. Well, it's a bonus. For me, it's a sprat. People are saying, well, they've got him in, they've got him as a manager. But for me, from an owner's point of view, if they're playing the game the right way from what I've saw, I think it's a sprat to catch a mackerel, if you will. I think they've given him an 18-month deal because they know that they're probably going to have to change it in the summer if they did get promoted. Realistically, they're not going to go up with him. I don't think he's going to, especially with the players that they have and the finances that they may have, I don't think he's going to be the right guy to add to that. I think that's just how it's going to be. I think they're looking at it this season. I think he is the best bet from the bunch they had to get them promoted. I just genuinely think it is. The goal that they had there before wasn't going to do it. It just was not going to. They were in a downward spiral. I'll have any Baggies fan argue with me, even though they were 6th, they weren't going to get promoted under him. It just wasn't going to happen. Going into this game tomorrow night, I think they've got a really good chance. I mean, they've got players that can hurt teams at that level. So who knows? I mean, we could be talking tomorrow night. It's one of those games. I think it could be. Albion could go out of it winning 2-0, but I wouldn't be surprised if Blackburn come out of it winning 2-0 as well.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. No. Absolutely. And on that note, I think we will leave it there for tonight. So I think we've done well with just the two of us to get to where we have, quite frankly. So whatever you're doing this week, enjoy your football. The Box to Box podcast will be happening nationally. You've got to get yourself on that, Gav. The Box to Box national one.
I put my ring in the hat, but I haven't got a Twitter handle yet, so I might not.
That's the key. I don't think you'll get on it unless you get a Twitter handle. So occasionally I dip in on that. But our heart is in the Midlands. I think it's fair to say. For myself, Ben Ellis, and Gavin Longthorne, we've been on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The West Midlands Football Podcast will be back next Sunday. Might be touch and go for you to get on it, Gav. If your 4:30 job at Molineux, isn't it? So if you're going to
I'll find a way.
You'll find a way.
Don't worry, I'll find a way.
One thing's for sure, Gavin's reaction will be raw because he will have been.
Might be very good, might be very bad, might be very boring. We'll see.
Yeah, and I will have been at Villa Park on Saturday, so very, very much looking forward to that. We hope you enjoy your football throughout this week. From me, Ben Ellis, and Gavin Longthorne, we will catch you next Sunday. Goodbye.